Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to make some doll baseball hats. Before I get started with the actual sewing, I'm going to do this wide lens so you can actually see the hats on the dolls themselves. This was the first one I made. This was out of that crushed velvet because I have so much of it. I used store-bought bias tape and I wasn't happy with it. So I ended up making my own bias tape for the other caps, but I'll show that to you when I get there. This was the first one I made. I wasn't very happy with it because the rim was just a wee bit too small on the doll, I thought. So what I did is I increased the rim and made it a much bigger rim on my subsequent baseball caps. And basically all the baseball cap is two pieces. You need to cut 6 of your top cap, and then you're going to need 2 of the bottom brim. And with the bottom brim you're also going to need interfacing. I've been using 2 to 3 pieces of interfacing depending on the type of fabric. If it's corduroy, I've been only using 2 pieces of interfacing. Unless I want a really stiff brim, then I've been using 3 pieces of interfacing. But it's going to loosen up, so you know that's just the only way you're going to have a really hard lasting brim is if you use cardboard. But on these little doll hats I don't think you really need them. This was another sample I made up. I didn't do a very good job sewing it, but I tried to color the cap with different designs. And on this one also I put a little JG for Journey Girls and out of fabric paint, and I'll show you how I did that. This was my first attempt at trying to do decorations on the brim. I didn't sew it very well because I was just playing around. I didn't think I was even going to make this hat. But it's just a sample of some of the things you can do on the baseball hat brims. But anyway, they look really cute on the dolls. You can wear them like a regular hat. Kyla's got a lot of hair, so you might want to, depending on your doll's head, you might want to go a little bit bigger or loosen up your elastic a little bit, because you're going to need, in the back, you're going to need a 2-inch strip of elastic. So depending on as much hair as your doll has, you can determine how much of an elastic stretch you want. But anyway, that was one of the ones I've made. You know, the kids wear their baseball hats all kinds of different ways nowadays, so you can wear it that way, you can wear it on the side. So, you know, it's just different things you can do. So that was the Journey Girl one. This was the first one, like I said. If you want the smaller brim, you can cut the brim down, but the same thing. If you want to just make a beanie, just leave the brim off completely and you'll have the pattern for just a plain beanie. But that's her. And this was, I tried to take the fabric and design it so it was the same. I sort of tried to create a pattern, so I put my little sunflowers on 3 of them, and then I put the rabbit on 3 of them, thinking I could you know, do a different thing, just make a pattern just by using the different colors of fabric. So here's Dana, and I tried to match this pink. I still have some of this pink, so I can actually make her a baseball cap in this pink color. But that was the caps. So anyway, at least now you know what they look like, and then I'll show you how to sew them together. This looks almost English, like a English writing cap, because it's got the smaller brim on it. It's kind of cute too, so you know, there's just so many things you can do with these. It's just totally up to you. It's a personal preference thing. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. I'm going to get out my how to show you how to cut these out. This is a perfect way to use up your scrap fabric. Okay, I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, let's get started on these baseball caps. First thing I did was I took my pattern And I made myself a couple templates. You can skip this part, but I did it because it's easier. It was easier for me. So I did a cardboard of the top of the cap, and I did a copy of the brim. So the reason I did this is so that when I took my freezer paper, that I could just use that without having to trace it, and I could go really, really fast and make a whole bunch of these and cut them out. Instead of having to put the pattern underneath and trace them, it just sped things up for me, because I knew I was probably going to be cutting out a lot of these little panels that I knew I was going to need a lot of these. So it's just another helpful hint. If you want to do it like that, it's as easy as putting your pattern on there and then having to trace every single one of them. It's just much faster this way. Okay, so that was with the freezer paper and the pattern. So like I said, you're going to cut 6 at the top, and you're going to cut 2 of these, and you're going to cut either 2 or 3 of the interfacing, however you think you need, however hard you want your brim to be. It's totally up to you. Okay, so what I did is I took a whole bunch of scrap fabric. I made a baby quilt out of this fabric years and years ago, and I just, we're talking like 35 years ago, and I had nothing to use up the rest of this with, and I thought, well, this would be a perfect way to use up some of this fabric that I had no other use for. Okay, so I'm going to take some of my patterns, and I'm going to just heat my iron and iron them on. Oh, it's raining outside. We've been getting lots and lots of rain in the Texas, Houston area. Now you can hear it hitting the roof. Okay, and I'll do one more. So basically that's all you're going to do with all your scrap fabric. Just iron them on. And the nice thing about having a good variety of pieces, you can lay out your pattern and you can get a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like. So anyway, I'll just cut that out real quick. Aside. If when you're cutting these out and you trim your paper by mistake, just go ahead and throw that one away. It won't matter for your first one if you make a little cut into the paper, but your subsequent, you know, the ones that you do afterwards, it'll just keep getting your piece smaller and smaller. So eventually it's not going to sew well together. So if you cut into your paper, just throw that piece away. You know, just don't use it. It's just not worth it. Okay, so then there's a pink one that I can use on my hat. Like I said, the nice thing about cutting these out, you can actually lay your pattern out and see how it's going to look before you even decide to make it, whether or not you're going to like it. So I could use this little handprint, or I can change it by adding different colors instead. Say I don't like having all those handprints together, I can change the entire look by putting green in the middle. Say it's going to be a boy, I could instead make it blue in the middle so I can make it a boy. Say it's going to be a girl, I could turn this over. Instead of having the blue handprint being predominant on the front of the brim, I could turn it over and have a pink and a green hand. So it's just, you just play with your fabric combination. Say you don't even want any hands on there, you can just do a kaleidoscope of just colors on by itself with all your different colors. So you can get a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like before you even make it. So anyway, that's the idea. Like I said, so you're going to do the same thing with the brim. You're going to cut out whatever you like, and here's my interfacing. So to make it easy to cut my interfacing out, I didn't use because this is iron-on interfacing, you don't want to use your freezer paper on there. So I took my iron-on, it's getting folded so many times it's a mess. So anyway, I just took my cardboard piece of fabric, my cardboard piece, and I put it on my interfacing, and I just drew the pattern on the interfacing, top of the interfacing, because you do not want to use, like I said, if you use your freezer paper on the interfacing here, you're going to end up having it stick to your ironing board or your paper mat, because this is iron-on interfacing. Okay, so then you just cut out your brim. I believe that this piece of interfacing is the Decobond, which is one of the heavier weights on the interfacing scale. You don't have to be exact on this because you're not going to see it. It's going to be inside your brim. Okay, so now it's ready to iron on. Okay, so now we've got our pieces, and we've got our interfacing, we've got our brim, and now we're going to get ready to sew. So like I said on your scrap piece, this would be perfect for a brim, or you can use like things like this that you know you can't use for anything else. Just make sure if you're using your scrap fabric that you don't put your bias on the bottom of here on this, because you don't want it to stretch out of shape. You want to be on the straight grain for the bottom of your piece of cap, because that's what's going to go around the head, and you don't want that to stretch. If you had it this way, it would stretch a little bit while you're putting it on the doll, and you don't want that. So just make sure you're on the straight grain is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, I wouldn't have enough to make a whole cap out of this one, probably not, but what I could do is I could do a pink flower, rose, and then a black one, pink, black, and that would make a really cute cap also. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to get my sewing machine out, and we will start putting one of these together.